Guess what? It is 5 o'clock. Everyone knows what that means. It is Barsha, episode 38 with Broadway conductor pianist John Yoon. Now we are going to bring John Yoon to camera.
Hello.
Hello, John. I've got a little ditty for you. Where do you go on Mondays when you want to have fun? Where can you go on Mondays when your day is done? Well, Fireside Chat is where it's at. Our guests are all the best. He can conduct a full orchestra from piccolo to bassoon. He's with us this afternoon. Here's John Yoon. Help me in welcoming John Yoon.
Woo! Wow. I think that's the first time anyone's ever written anything for me before.
Well, you know, it's a little
great.
ditty I write and I plug the people's stuff in.
Yeah.
John Yoon, let me give you a fantastic welcome. And before we start talking about everything in your life, John is a New York-based music director and pianist, as it says. And he was recently, where I met him, the associate music director, associate conductor at Tina the Turner musical on Broadway. And he's done a wide range of things which we're going to talk about. One of the things we're going to talk about before we start anything is my first impression of you when you first came.
Dear.
Can we talk about how your job was down to the wire Turner musical when you came? Because John is from Canada. Go ahead, John.
Oh, right. Yeah. So it feels like a long time ago, but it wasn't. We were reopening everything, or at least trying to. And I'm Canadian, and as Canadians all know, there's a type of visa that works both ways for you Americans who ever need to go to Canada to do any work, known as a P2 visa. And mine had just expired from a previous job I was supposed to do prior to the pause. And
we call it the pause. Yes,
I'm calling it the pause now. It just sounds less dramatic. Better. Yeah, I like the pause. And then I, had to scramble a little bit to get a new one. So for the first, 5 or 6 days, I was in the rehearsal room with you, not doing anything, not playing anything, just observing, which was interesting. Full mask, everything, trying to get things together, but not allowed to do anything, but was very helpful.
Yes, and John, I was the rehearsal pianist. John was coming in, was going to be taking over the associate conductor chair because our associate conductor had moved to conductor. But I kept saying, John, you want to play? He goes, I'm not going to screw up my visa.
I didn't know. I don't think I would probably.
You would have been able to.
You don't want to mess around with the USCIS because, I have heard from Americans as well going the other direction that things can be strict and rigid, and you don't want to mess that up, especially if the bulk of your work, like mine is in the United States. I wasn't taking any chances.
Okay, so now let's go back. Knowing you're from Canada, we need to go back because the whole time I worked with you at Tina, we don't get a chance. Everybody doesn't understand. We come down to the musician's room, we hang out, we make popcorn, we do all kinds of crazy things. But we never really talk in depth with each other, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to interview you. I want to know how this all started. What age were you? When did you start on piano first? What happened in your musical life in Canada? And where were you exactly in Canada?
So I was in Northern Ontario, which I always use the Michigan reference. So here's Michigan. There's a border town at the top where the Upper Peninsula is, and I live on the Canadian side of that city, which is Sault Ste. Marie, or that's at least where I grew up. And like most kids, when you're growing up 4, 5 years old, the word no isn't really part of your vocabulary. You just kind of go with it.
Right.
You get thrown into activities, and the idea of refusing it, that's not in it. So I just kind of went with it, and but I also was into the other Canadian activities, like playing hockey and things, and I didn't really think about music as a profession until way, way, way later. Uh, Maybe in my 20s. Like I was such a late bloomer. I don't think I really turned it on until I was 27, truly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
so excited to learn this. I did not know that
Yeah.
about you.
I'm so late to the game. It is I part of it. So I think when you're from, well, part of, no, okay. So in Ontario, prior to 2003, if as a high school student, you took 5 years.
Right.
That was the
Oh,
thing.
so that's different.
Yeah.
So you don't
Not
get out of
anymore. Not anymore. But until 2003, you took 5 years. And the fifth year counted part of uh, your university credit. I don't know. There was some transferring happening like that. It's very confusing. Obviously,
So they didn't wait. Did they call you a senior in year 4 or 5?
you were in. Well, we don't really say senior, junior, freshman. Like we knew what those terms were from watching American movie and TVs. It, when I say it like that, it sounds like we're so far away from you, but we're really like 400 miles from. But those terms, I knew what they were, but we didn't refer to each other as, oh, you're a sophomore. We would say, oh, you're a grade 10 student,
Oh,
which is also different because you
so there's
say
grade 13?
there was. So I was already one year out, coming out of high school. And
Right.
my last year, they had knocked off 5 years. The school boards had decided, okay, we're not doing that anymore. No problem. But I was not a music student until my third year of undergraduate, mainly because I just wasn't, nothing else was happening for me. I was not succeeding at anything.
Look at John Yoon. See, this is why I love John. I said, John, I'm going to interview you. I want to find out because he's, I was so impressed with him when he did Tina. And he said, you're going to lose a lot of followers.
You've probably lost about 7 in the last 5 minutes from being.
Stop it. Just stop it. Okay.
But yeah, I failed miserably in my first 2 years. So much so that by the time I had decided to take music a little more seriously, and when I say a little more seriously, I still mean probably in the bottom third of most like serious music schools here in the States. That when it came time for me to apply to graduate school, there were a couple schools. I'd originally gotten into McGill with a scholarship, and then they had taken back their offer because they had taken a look at my first and second year and said, well, we can't let you in, and your grades were too low. And I thought, well, you've already offered me money, and so I had to go back, take a sixth year of undergraduate and retake all these courses, and even then, by the time I got to graduate school, I'm still a horrible student, by the way, at this point. Like I'm not really practicing in the summers because I don't know any better. I
love
don't.
this. I love you being honest. Like this is my favorite.
I didn't know anything. I wasn't intentionally being a poor student. I just didn't know what other people who were taking this seriously did. Had I known, I probably would have practiced in the summers. But I remember getting to my first master class of my master's program, and the very first day, and this was probably the top class at the university. Everybody wanted to study with this teacher. We're still friends now, by the way, at Western, and he tore me a new one. He was like, why do you sound like this? I'm like, sound like what? He's like, you sound like you haven't been playing all summer. I said, I haven't. And I think you could just feel the tension of all the other students. Everybody was like, oh my goodness, he didn't play all summer. It's like, of course you don't play in the summer. Summer's for, playing soccer and going out and doing things. Like, why on earth would I play in the summer? Anyways, I had a lot of music growing up to do, and I caught up, but it was, I didn't make any friends for the first 5 or 6 months because I was in the room like playing catch up, and I was so behind. Didn't know how to play with other instrumentalists. Didn't know how to play with singers. Didn't know anything. My chops at the time were like okay, but they were like and I knew I was just flapping to stay alive. I knew how far behind I was, and I thought, oh my God. And it wasn't even at that point, I'm not even thinking, oh, I'm going to try to make a career out of this. At that point, I'm just like, grades. I want to, I'm not even thinking that far off in the future. I'm just thinking, oh my God, if I'm going to make this work and even graduate, I need to get going here because I'm way behind. But
it all worked out. Listen,
it all
John,
worked out.
This is one of the great stories because every musician starts out differently. You know what I mean? Everybody starts out different. I never would have known this about you. First of all, I loved your conducting. I loved your piano playing. One of the things that people don't know about musicians on Broadway is sometimes they noodle before a show. And John was like noodling jazz. He could play classical. I'm like, who is this guy? He came down from, it was just insane. And I really right away thought, oh, this is a really musical person. This is like, so you had innate talent, whether you were using it to go forward or not from the beginning. You always had a great ear. I know you did. Am I right?
The ear stuff, I had great teachers is what it was. When I think of my, teachers, in the early grades, some of them were very strict about ear training and stuff. And I don't know, I had a good time with it. And, when the idea of transcribing was introduced to me, that stuff was always kind of fun to me. I didn't know that it could be so useful later in your professional life. I just,
That's what I want to talk about now. So in your bio, you said that one of the things you did was for the new West Side Story 20-piece orchestra score rework. Now, when you say that, did you actually do the finale work? Did you actually do the engraving?
Oh, hell no. No.
What did you do? What does score rework mean?
I don't know. Can I talk about this?
You can't talk about it?
I
don't do it if you can't.
It's probably fine.
Okay.
Famous last words. I just conducted the session. I didn't do any. I should never be allowed to touch finale in this universe.
Okay,
I can do it. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so if you're even watching this, you probably are familiar with what finale is, but
I will tell them.
I've come to learn that there are people who can get by, and there are wizards, and I'm nowhere near wizard level. Like, I've met some real wizards in my life, and they should absolutely be getting all the finale.
Okay.
I can do it.
Okay, let me tell everybody what finale is, just quickly. So let's say you get a piece of sheet music. There is somebody that actually engraved, it's called, in a program, wrote it out. It used to all be done by hand. Now it's in a actual digital program where you can actually, I'm not great at it either, but I can do piano vocal charts, pretty much. Okay. Now, I want to say John Yoon tells us all that. We're going to talk about some more things that he did. But I do think as a child, you must have looked up to either some composers, some piano players. Like, who were the people that you listened to or looked up to?
Nobody. That is
okay.
The honest
I
truth.
Love you for saying.
Oh my God, Varsha, I did not. I looked up to hockey players.
He was a sports guy.
I grew up in Northern Ontario. Wayne Gretzky had played for the Greyhounds. I dreamt of being a hockey player, but you can't tell from the screen, but my stature is not very, now I probably could get by because the game is a little bit different, but in those years you needed to be like 6'2", 200 something. And I'm just not built that way.
Now,
but those were my heroes. The music thing came way late. And here's why, is because in 2002, YouTube started to become a thing. And all of a
Yes.
sudden, I had access to the real giants. I didn't know who the giants were in any of the genres. I didn't know how far that ladder went. Um, by accident, CBC was airing an Oscar Peterson concert. It was a Tokyo concert. Ulf Lucanis was playing guitar. I think Martin Drew was playing drums. I can't remember who his bassist was, but he just happened to be. It just happened to be on the screen, and that kind of started to shape my interest. But the access to that stuff, I didn't have anyone kind of throwing records my way. It really, by the time I learned what this was, again, I was late. I didn't really knew who any of these folks were until much later.
Okay, I just want everyone to know. So you go from that to the Jimmy Fallon show. Look at John Yoon, hello, on Jimmy Fallon with Adrian Warren doing, this is on his website, which I put in the fortune cookie. So you see where John came from and where he is there. So anybody can come from anywhere. But then I looked at some more pictures. Can you please tell us about this?
Well, okay. So if you start to go down that route, and when I say that route, I'm talking about becoming a collaborative pianist. You start working with singers and instrumentalists, and that happens to a lot of solo players, either because they need to make a few bucks on the side, or interest, or both.
Right.
Inevitably, that interest will put you somewhere in the world of music directing, and possibly music directing a choir, because
That's
there's
right.
always need for music directors, choirs directors, Kapellmeisters, whatever. The work with singers will always, they will always need somebody who's comfortable, kind of doing both. And that photo was taken when I was in grad school, and I got a job music directing at a church, Fairmont United Church, who I have very fond memories of. But that
That
was my
is the greatest
first.
picture I have ever seen. I love it.
They were great.
Now, here's another picture. I want everybody to realize what happens here. So this picture is the Tony Awards, the 74th Tony Awards, from the seat that John played at. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And what was it like playing for the Tony Awards?
So all of this stuff, once I had booked the Tina, because they were a relatively new show, it came with, you know, Jimmy Fallon appearance and all this stuff. So I kind of got thrown into these wonderful opportunities. And I played large events before, but not, like large American events that even, a layperson who's not really into theater, like, if you walk up to somebody on the street who's not even, have you ever heard of the Tony Awards? Yes. So playing that was very exciting for me. Not because I wasn't a major theater fan or someone who had watched the Tony Awards every year or anything like that, but I knew what that was.
Yes.
It was very exciting.
And so here's the band that you did the Tonight Show with when you did Jimmy Fallon. I'm just going through some of these pictures because you really got some good pictures. Can you tell us about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory when you were on tour?
Great group of musicians that I'm still very, very close with, all of them. I think part of what you look for when you're forming any kind of band, or any work group for that matter, is that you want a blend of personalities and energies that are going to mesh together. And sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't, and that's fine. You don't have to work with people that are your best friends. But that was one of those times when that group of 5 people, it was, and we knew it while it was happening, because at that point, we were all at similar stages of our careers, and we had done enough work to know that what we had was pretty special. And we kind of wanted to keep the love fest going. Thought, wow, this is really great. Like, we really get along. We choose to spend time with each other outside of work. Like, we don't have to eat lunch between sound check and thing, but we chose to because we liked each other's company, and that doesn't always happen. And when you get that, it just feels like, oh wow, I'm so lucky. I have a job, and B, I get to do it with people that I like.
Yes, and I felt that about Tina too. I felt like that was just a great group of people.
100%. I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to talk to you about stick conducting, just talking about this, because your website, you're sitting there with a conductor's baton. And for whatchamacallit, for Christmas, somebody got me a baton. I have never stick conducted in my life. Now, nobody, am I right to say that Broadway, nobody stick conducts or have, I mean.
Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter. No one's watching you anyways, whether you have a stick.
What are you talking about? We're all watching you on the monitor. No, I was watching you on the monitor all the time.
I think there's it really depends on how a show is built. Sometimes visually you want some of the, I don't know how to say this. It really depends on the show as to whether the show asks for stick conducting or not.
Well, because you have to play. You have to play with one hand.
There is that. I mean, even if, there are many conductors who don't have to play, orchestral conductors who choose not to use a stick.
Can you give me the basic lesson? What is this stick? Is it supposed to be an extension from your wrist? Just give me 101 stick conducting lesson.
I have no idea.
Isn't that great? You're posing on your website with a stick, and you don't even know how to use the baton. Remember how we had to?
From what I understand, the origins come from, it was sort of morphed from your concertmaster, your violinist, who would kind of be facing the stage when they were, doing operas, and they would sort of be leading their orchestra with their bow, and then go directly into playing. So I think it actually evolved from that tradition. But
yeah, I am not. No. I'm a person that always had to conduct into a camera, a very small camera on Broadway. Never a big thing except for a choir or something like you said, but always into a tiny camera.
Yeah, getting used to working in this square only. They're pretty different things, and depending on who you're playing with, they'll usually prefer one or the other. I think people who do what we do, which is primarily play shows, have gotten used to looking at this tiny little screen. Whereas I think if you're doing shows in Europe, I think they still have a preference of having more expression, nonverbal.
I watched Gustavo Dudamel the other day on TV, and I was like, what's happening? This is insanely fantastic. Did you use the stick when you were conducting for the Leonard Bernstein Foundation?
I did. Yeah.
Wow. And what is that, the Leonard Bernstein Foundation? I don't even know what that organization is or anything about it.
I'm guessing here. But I
love the way John never commits to facts.
No, because I don't really know the true. I think they are responsible for ongoing productions of his works, and I don't really know how.
That's okay. I'm going to look it up because it sounds really amazing.
But from what I understand, if you want to do a major production of West Side Story, you have to consult with his peeps.
Yes, you do.
You can't just go grab the full score from wherever, buy it, and then make it. It's got to go through some channels.
And I also love that you have on your resume Leonard Bernstein Foundation, and then right under it, Disney's Zombie 3 music video.
$20 is $20,
I know. So when you say Disney Zombie 3 music video, is that like you did the recording for that?
It was a live recording, like a stripped down acoustic version of one of the popular songs from the Disney Zombie series, which I will fully admit I was not familiar
Of
before I
course.
got called for that. So I did have to do a little research. But it was kind of an unplugged version with just keys and guitar that was done at the Vimeo studios in Brooklyn with the two stars from that series.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
Now, I want to get serious for a second because I asked you beforehand if I could get a little bit serious.
of course.
And you said I'm an open book and it's fine. So I want to talk about what the one thing that we got deep on a little bit during rehearsals is that one day you woke up and something medically happened to you and you didn't know what happened. Can we talk about that and what
Oh,
happened?
yeah. So not during rehearsals,
No, I
because
mean you and
by
I
the
talked.
time I got to rehearsals, we were cool.
I know, but you had told me at rehearsal what had happened to you previously.
So in addition to all the other craziness that was happening in 2020, I had discovered in the middle of the night, well, not so much in the middle of the night, but I woke up from a seizure. I did not know what was happening. Luckily, my partner was sleeping next to me, and she had, she works in medicine, so she kind of knew what was going on. And, I'd woken up and I knew she was speaking English, and I knew I was speaking English, but nothing made sense. And she just kept saying, like, the ambulance on their way. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And we discovered later, after a few more seizures and episodes, that I have a brain tumor, non-cancerous, called a cavernoma, which is on the left side of my brain, the size of a raspberry, which is totally under control now. But before, we weren't quite so sure how to control the seizures. It was like they would just happen at random, and it was a terrifying experience because I wasn't sure if, like, how bad was this gonna get. And there were definitely times where things got pretty nasty. I stayed in the hospital for a week, and I was like, wow, is this it? Because this is pretty bad, and I was at Hopkins in Baltimore, and the neurosurgeon had come in and said, listen, there's a possibility that we may have to have surgery on your brain. There's a 95% success rate, but it is on the left side of your brain, which means it affects, your motor skills on the right side. And I thought, well, okay, well, I'm, kind of weighing the pros and cons of all of it. But, long story short, we did figure out a solution, medication, and that sort of thing. And it's fingers crossed, but it's been under control since 2020.
I'm knocking. I'm giving you applause.
Yeah. It was scary because at that time, no one could come see you at the hospital either. No one could come in and, even this was in the heart of 2020. So I couldn't even get things dropped off. They'd be like, no, he can't have those things. They'd be something like pajamas or something like that. Like nothing was allowed in or out of the hospital. My only lifeline was my cell phone, and I apologize for anybody listening. I definitely FaceTime some people who probably saw some things that they're not going to be able to forget. I didn't think of it at the time, but I thought I definitely remember a few times, FaceTiming some friends in our business actually, and saying, "Oh, can you give me a second?" And I would put the phone down, have an episode and then pick it back. Like I could feel them coming. Sometimes they'd be big, sometimes
Oh,
they'd be
you
not so big.
felt them. You felt them coming.
Yeah, because some of them, I think the word is focal. They'd be smaller ones. They wouldn't always be these massive earthquakes, although those did happen as well. But
so, what is the diet restriction? I mean, what helps? You opted for no surgery. So, what do you?
Well, because we got it under control, they kind of
Right.
threw the kitchen sink at it in terms of medication, and now we're at a point where we've kind of dialed back some of the medication. But I can't take anything that thins my blood, which in 2020 was consuming probably more alcohol than average.
Yes, gotta stop that. Yes,
I think I had also taken some Advil. It was just like the perfect storm of things I'm not supposed to take. But the crazy part is the doctors are pretty sure I've had it my whole life. And when I think of the times in my life when I've very much thinned my blood out, how could it be that I'd gone this long without having, because I know I've put my body in far more precarious situations.
How fortunate you were that your girlfriend was right next to you, right?
Yes. Yeah, because I would have woken up and thought, that's weird. My tongue is bleeding. I wonder what that was about. And then just shrugged it off and not know. And then, yeah.
And it's funny because I don't know if you do you have a spiritual practice?
No, not really.
We never really talked about that. Do you consider that something spiritual or something? What do you consider that she was there just synchronistic?
I don't know. I haven't really gone too deep into,
Okay.
I am thankful that she was there.
Okay. Now we know you've been diagnosed, you changed your life. And believe me, when you came to the show, first of all, I want to say that it really matters on Broadway and in theater in general. And you know this because it's extremely collaborative, that a person also can hang out and be really cool. And I know sometimes when you were conducting and I was playing your chair, the key one chair, and I would make a mistake and I'd say into the microphone, "God damn it, John." And you'd say, "Yeah, so what? It's just a show," or something like that. You were so incredible, because we have to play the same shit every night and it has to be exactly the same so the actors can do what they need to do. And so I'm hard on myself, but you weren't. You're just like, yeah. And, it was really, I got to think.
I think we're all hard on ourselves, not just musicians, but I think there are two ways to go about when someone makes a mistake as they're playing. I mean, of course, we all know people who do the eye roll and it's just, the moment has passed.
That's what you made. You were like, yeah, just let's keep, like you made a joke out of it every time.
Well, it never made sense to me why you would reprimand some or put that sort of
during a performance
out there.
But people have.
I just don't know if that's going to make them. What do we think is going to happen? You're going to create this moment that didn't need to be uncomfortable, more uncomfortable, and it doesn't guarantee more or less success the next time it comes around.
I love it. I always thought you were so great at that. And people don't realize in our audience, maybe who aren't musicians know about Broadway, but not only are we playing, we're also with our feet. We have a volume pedal, we have a sustain pedal, and we're changing patches so that different sounds come up. And there's hundreds of patches within a show. So if you're on the wrong sound, I mean, it can sound like a trombone in the middle of a piano solo, which...
Yeah, there's a lot of plates to keep spinning. Some shows are more demanding than others, but even if you're playing mainly keyboard sounds, it's still, you're always thinking about, okay, what's happening next? Am I playing with everybody? Does it sound good? Is this the same volume that the person who normally plays it is playing it at?
That's right.
It's
because the actors are listening for that. The actors are listening for the same thing so they don't have to think about it, you know?
Yeah,
I don't
there's
know.
enough pressure. It's not helpful to add more of that onto someone's already,
Yeah.
especially for someone who isn't playing that chair every night. Like they're already a little bit on pins and needles. I never subscribe to that. You know, people
Yeah.
do what they do.
Yeah, you're great.
But
I
I
want
think
to
that, sorry, I was going to say, I think that experience may have changed my lens a little bit. I mean, I don't doubt that that has probably contributed to not only Tina, but the way I'll look at a lot of things, both in and outside of the theater. I mean, how could you not take that into consideration? Um, we have a life, and we can choose to react to certain things certain ways, and you're going to make people feel certain things, and there are many ways to go about it. So I
Can
don't
I
know.
ask you now? I come down to the sensitive questions. Just because when we came back for Tina, we did a lot of equity diversity counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And you were part of that, a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you hadn't been there necessarily before that, but what we came back to was very different than what we started out with. Being Asian, how do you feel about that in our line of work? Do you have a context for that in Canada? What's it like as opposed to America?
Well, I never felt. Um, I don't think it's that I was oblivious to what was happening, but certainly as I got older, um, and as I got deeper into my professional life, you start to notice patterns around you. You
Mm,
know, I remember one time a director asking me at a regional theater. It was like a review show, and he said, he didn't ask me directly. He actually asked the music director if I would feel comfortable doing, um, you know, kind of an Asian voice. We were kind of doing like a Victor Borge bit, uh, and this would have been 2009. This is not that long ago, um, and I was like, "Wait, he wants me
First
to
of all,
do
he was
what?"
globalizing an Asian voice, like as if every
Yeah,
Asian.
he's like, "Well, it'd be really funny after you slam your hands on the keys, whatever." We did the Borga sketch. It was, the sketch was funny.
Well, Victor
Uh,
Borgo was one of my. I just loved him. Anyway,
but he said, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "I'm not doing that." And he said, "That's what I thought your answer would be." And I thought, if the director didn't feel comfortable asking me directly, I mean, that's probably a pretty good sign that that's a little bit gauche, right?
yeah,
Anyways,
gauche is a nice word for that. Yeah, but yeah,
yeah.
but but interesting. So, okay, so that was a kind of a blatant thing, but do you experience it in any other way? I guess musicians have a different language, though. I know I'm not trying to make excuses, but I've talked about
Um,
this with a lot of the members in our band.
I remember one time being in a touring orchestra of 13 or 15, and it, the orchestra, all white folks except me and black guy, 15, 20 years older than me,
Okay.
more experienced, seen more things.
Yep.
And we were at an orchestra party, and he had kind of made reference to "we're here because," and I thought,
Oh, so you mean filling a quota thing?
I was too young to know then. I didn't know if he was being serious, and maybe that is partially from being in Canada. I don't think it happens that much less. But now thinking back to this instance, uh, I think he was kind of being a little bit serious about it.
You're,
And we're still in contact about it, and I that guy he was kidding,
but
sort of.
exactly.
I'm like, oh my God,
Yes.
you were totally right. When I think about everybody in that oh my goodness, and it's kind of been happening, and now that we had uh, reckoning. It's like, oh my goodness, there are problems.
Yeah.
But
But it's great to know your perspective on it, because it really, it makes a difference to me now to hear his perspective. I think dialogue's everything. I think communication's everything, in and out.
yeah,
Now I want to get to the fun part. How you met your girlfriend, and we're going to talk about what's coming up for you now.
what is coming up for me?
Hello?
Do you know?
You showed a picture of an ultrasound online. Can we
Spoiler
applaud
alert.
you're having a baby?
I'm having a baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm allowed to say it because you showed the ultrasound and I asked if I could. So, number one, how did you meet your partner?
All right.
And do you intend on getting married? Okay, go ahead.
We met, I was with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory playing at the Hippodrome in Baltimore, as you do if you've ever been on, that touring circuit. I met her on Bumble.
You met her on an app. I love it.
We met her on an app. And at the time, and probably still, you could, I don't know what the apps look like these days, but you could kind of adjust your settings, at the time you could sort of filter political leaning, shall we say, so you would just, not waste your time,
who wants to waste their time on an app?
certain firearm stances. I don't know. I'm trying to be diplomatic about this, but it was convenient. It was like filtered all these folks, and we just had hit it off. It was like during during our morning rehearsal. I obviously wasn't doing very much if I had time to chat with her, but she was very quick. And theater folks, or people who are not theater folks, it feels like in our community, we're just constantly trying to be funny, quick, one-up each other as much and as often as possible.
That's
all day,
true.
every day. We're just cracking jokes. And I feel, I call them civilians, but people who are not in theater, I feel like, I don't want to say slower, but it's not as important for them to always be in that mode. Right? We're in that mode.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, because people speak. We just take for granted. Okay, we speak each other's language. Now we can laugh.
Right.
Kind of. Yeah.
But she was, also, quick, witty, and we hit it off, and she started. We hung out the whole week, and then we were on to Pittsburgh in the next city, and then she kind of came down and hung out for a bit, and I remember going to rehearsal and thinking, this woman I kind of know could probably steal all of my belongings. Like, I sure hope this goes okay.
This is the Canadian attitude. I can tell you, that is Canadian. I'm sorry. I think we have a Canadian in the audience. Kathleen is Canadian. She's got a little thought bubble here. Let me see what she's saying. Oh, she said the moment has passed. I got to find out. Okay, but Kathleen, you can come up anytime. We want Q&A if you want to come up. Oh, here she comes. She's from Canada. We got to invite her here. Kathleen, oh my God, please come up and talk to John. I forgot we have a Canadian here.
It's always good to have a couple in the room.
Okay, I'm going to ask her to come up because I don't know. But yeah, I just think, it's pretty casual. Like, you're just like, hey, I wonder if this person's going to steal my shit. I hope it works out.
What's the worst that can happen? I've got 2 bags and a laptop. And at the time, which would have been 2018 or 19, it still felt pretty new to meet somebody on an app to me.
Right.
But then I saw a statistic that came out somewhat recently that said, something like 60% of folks are now meeting on apps. I don't know whether that's true or not, and I don't think it makes a difference how you meet a partner or
right.
But anyways, That was coming up on 4 years ago. Now we both live in New York and have a baby on the way.
Now, you didn't always live and she left. You were on your days off. Where were you going to see her?
Going back to Baltimore, doing the train thing. And even while I was on tour, we would kind of like, hopscotch and fly to wherever, if I was in a nice place to visit, she would fly out, spend a week there, and we were kind of doing that balancing act for a while. And then I stayed there during the entire pandemic. It was either there or Canada, and she works in medicine. And if you remember the very early days, if you knew somebody who worked in a hospital, they weren't hanging out with people who didn't work in hospitals. They suddenly became like a do not go. It was. So I thought, well, I should probably stay because it's going to be. I just assumed when you chose to stay, we both assumed, well, we're going to get it. It's inevitable.
Well, I'm so excited about this baby.
Do you know the due date is 4/20?
That's a great date. That's
what I said.
That's my mother's anniversary for my dad. 4/20. Oh my God. Mom, do you hear that? She's clapping. Oh, Sonia's on stage. Sonia, do you want to come to camera or just want to unmic and talk to John?
I'm just unmiking. Hi, John.
Hey.
I'm in Canada, in Vancouver area. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So how are you? I just caught a little bit of your talk in the last few minutes. So.
Great.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah. About 25 weeks in now. It just feels like I've been saying, people ask, oh, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And the best analogy I can think of is that it feels like a term paper that you have to submit at the end of the semester. And it feels like you have a lot of time until you don't.
Yes. Everything will change. That got a laugh.
I feel like I have loads of time and I know it's going to come crashing down in a day.
Because if you've announced it, you're past the first, place where you're not supposed to announce it. What is that, the trimester or something?
Yeah, you're right. We were holding off, I think for like 8 or 9 or 10 weeks or something like that. So we're like 15 weeks out now.
And this wasn't planned. Was this planned?
It wasn't not planned.
Okay.
We were sort of letting fate decide.
I love
this
it.
Point.
John, I'm so excited. I want to, Sonia, you're welcome to stay up. You can go down. You can whenever. Anybody that wants to come up, always at a quarter of when we do the last part of the show, I allow anybody to come up and ask if they want to ask a question or say hello to John. But I do want to, I found one picture on your website I want to talk about, which is in Istanbul, Turkey, doing West Side Story in Istanbul, Turkey. First of all, what was that like?
Wow. An experience. We were playing there during a tumultuous political time.
That's why I'm asking.
Things were tense. And I'll just say that someone had written to company management about concerns regarding our company's well-being and travel.
Oh my God.
So they moved our housing from, I don't know, a bus ride away to the actual performance center, which was attached to a, what's the name of the hotel? A very nice hotel. So, we were able to kind of skirt by a potentially hairy situation.
Yeah.
There was a former FBI agent that was hired by the company to sort of give us a talk, and and give us tips about where not to go, how you should travel. And he was in the lobby every single day, just ready to, I wasn't really sure.
Okay, so you like every night. It's so weird because West Side Story's about these two gangs. I'm just like it's art imitating life. Just there you are in the middle of factions, doing a show about factions. You know what I mean?
It was easy to feel like we were in a bit of a bubble because you rarely had to leave the facility unless you wanted to go and venture out. And of course, if you're not from Istanbul, you wanted to go see, the sights, and
yes,
I certainly went. But you had to. I mean, it's kind of like being in any city really. You just kind of want to make sure that you're, got your head on a swivel a little bit, and
yeah.
So
for me, the last thing I wanted to talk about in these last 10 minutes, and anybody that bothers to put things on their resumes or bios means that they want the world to know this. And I'm going to ask you, you say that you are a coffee nerd.
Yeah.
I need to understand what coffee nerd means. Does it mean that you know the minute different tastes of different coffees? Does it mean you only have what is this coffee nerd thing that's on your bio?
It means that I have a digital scale.
No, this is not true. Is this true?
Yeah, I have a digital scale. I have a Chemex, an AeroPress. I have a digital kettle. I have an electric burr grinder. I can control the coarseness of the beans.
Okay, and this
bad.
No, this is so interesting to me. I thought it was a joke on your resume. So you're trying to tell me you're a real coffee nerd?
Yeah. And at one point, not too long ago, I kind of remembered, cities that I've been in based on the coffee roasters. I know.
Okay, now hold on. I need to, please, because let me just, I just need to indulge myself. This is something I love that I found out about you. So you're trying to tell me that, how do you use this apparatus in your apartment? You wake up, give me your morning thing.
Oh, the morning ritual is very important. It's the very first thing I do. First, I decide which apparatus I'm going to use because they produce very different coffees. And then I adjust the grind setting, like how coarse I want the grind, the coffee grounds to be. The temperature of the water's got to be 205 Fahrenheit, roughly, give or take. The ratio of bean to water is 16:1. So if you've got 20 grams of coffee, you're going to need about 295 grams of water. Give or take 300. Yep. Yeah.
Okay, please, I swear to God, if we only talk about this till the end, I'm going to be so happy. So you know the actual temperature, so it's 205. Okay, the courses. Okay, keep going to the point where you actually get the cup of coffee. Keep going.
Okay, well, so the temperature of the water can affect the taste of the coffee, how sour, how bitter it is. So too hot and it can be over-extracted, too cool and be under-extracted. So you kind of want to get to that, sweet spot where you're exactly, the water's, more or less the temperature that you want.
What do you put in the coffee? Anything? Nothing. Mm-hmm. Now here's the question. When you go to these commercialized places like Starbucks, are you picky about those? Like, do you go to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts?
Not usually. But there are great places in Midtown. Actually, there's one really great place close to most of the theaters that the coffee nerds go to, but I won't give it a free plug.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the espresso machine, the Nespresso machine that we had in our basement, did you ever use that?
I did. Mm-hmm.
So
There's a time and a place for everything.
Okay, John.
When you're in the basement of the Luntfontein Theater and it's intermission, you cannot be too picky about, you just need to get through that second act.
You got to get through that second act. Okay. First of all, I want to say everybody's clapping and laughing and look, people are saying things about coffee. Oh my God. Graciela says Starbucks has nothing on John. I love it. Okay. Listen, I want to thank you, not just because we work together, but because as a human being, I just feel connected to you as a person I could always just shoot the shit with and talk. And I really
Of course.
I know. I
feel the same way. I'm sad we don't get to see each other as much as we used to.
I know. We will again. But anyway, can we have a big round of applause for John Yoon, who is with us today to discuss everything from being a coffee nerd to playing West Side Story in Istanbul, Turkey, to being on Broadway, to being on Jimmy Fallon. You're the greatest, John Yoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Barsha. This was so fun.
I'm so happy you did this today.